Hey, everybody, welcome back to Toast and to our second episode of Colombia, a country that I hold dear to my heart. If you haven't watched the first episode, go check it out. It's about my experience kind of living there and getting to know the country as well as football, which you want to know about. Um, Today's episode is really about me getting to Colombia and really that first week before my volunteer experience. So, for a little bit of backstory before going to Colombia, I was traveling through Central America and I was kind of looking for a place to just hunker down and practice my Spanish and make some friends. And Colombia just seemed like that spot because everybody talks, very highly about the Spanish accent, the way that they speak Spanish. They speak the most proper version of Spanish because they use all the verb tenses, blah, blah. I'm not going to bore you with that spiel. What I'm trying to say is that Colombia has a lot of nice stereotypes and a lot of beautiful places, amazing cuisine and everything. So I chose Colombia and I found a place, but I still had to get to that place. And so actually, when I got off of the plane, I kind of made some friends and walked around Cartagena. For those of you who don't know, Cartagena is that first colonized city of America, the entirety of the continent of America. That was where, Columbus landed, and that's why they call it Cartagena or Cartagena of Columbus or Colombia. That's why Colombia is called Colombia because that's where Columbus landed, right? So essentially, I get to Cartagena, America's first city, and it's beautiful, and everything was going good. Staying in a hostel, made some friends, and meanwhile, I was kind of messaging these travelers that I was playing tag with along Central America. And what I mean by that is, if you've ever been a backpacker, you know that, sometimes you just run into people multiple times throughout your trip, or you organize to see them. And essentially, we had run into each other without planning it a few times before it. So then we kind of kept in touch because we were all on long trips. And so I organized to meet up with this German friend of mine. Her name's Laura, and we kind of met up in Santa Marta, which is close to Cartagena, another very old colonial town. You know that thing, right? Big church, big park, by the sea because you're on the northern Caribbean side. So really, really cool colonial cities. But the story really starts taking speed when I met Laura, because then she had already kind of met these other Germans that she was traveling with. And then when we were taking our bus from Santa Marta, because there's not that much to do in Santa Marta, but there's this very famous place called Palomino, which is a beachside town on the Caribbean coast. And it's so small that they don't even have paved roads. So it's pure sand and gravel roads just everywhere. Really nice feel to it when you get there, and not really, you have no preconception of what it's going to be. You don't really have any stereotypes unless you've looked at pictures, but I'm not really that type of traveler, especially when you're on a long trip like that. And so on this bus, it's basically like an 8-person taxi. You pay a premium, but you get there a lot faster, blah blah blah. There were other Germans. And so my friend Laura starts talking to them. And then now we're just acquiring more travelers. And then there's this other Canadian guy, Mike. And we just really started hitting it off. All of us were kind of having our own conversations, but all getting closer and closer, tightly knit to each other as a group, I guess. And it was really nice. Once we got to Palomino, we kind of all searched for our hostels and different, standards. And I found a really cool spot that just had hammocks. And I'd never really spent a full night in a hammock before. It sounded like it was comfortable. And so I went for that. It was also the cheapest option. I was a long-term traveler, got to be budget. But the hammock was actually really comfortable. They had mosquito nets around it so you wouldn't get, eaten alive. And all in all, that's just to say that Palomino was really the start of that groups experience together. So, we all met up and we found fruits and empanadas, and we were eating them on the beach. And I need to hold that thought for a second. Empanadas, okay, in Latin America, every country has its own empanadas. I'm not going to take favorites, but those empanadas in Palomino were among the best I've had in my life. So we took empanadas and we'd be eating them on the beach, and we'd go jumping in. And at some point, one of the girls dares me to go jump in the ocean naked. And I was well, whatever, I don't give a shit. So I went and I did it. And there's it's it's Colombia. They're on the beach. It's a famous place called Palomino. So there's a lot of people on the beach, and they're applauding me, and they're like egging me on to like do flips and stuff. It was a really funny moment, and I think everybody had a good laugh. So it was a good, little dare or whatever. Essentially, we didn't really stay in the same hostels because not everybody wanted the hammocks while we were in Palomino, but we stayed together the entire time. And what we were really going for there's this national park, and there's also this place called Minca, which is a little bit up in the mountains. And Minca is this, like, it's a tiny town again, but it's in the mountains, so it has some paved roads. Some, not many, but some. But it has this very famous spot, which I forgot what they call this, like giant hammock where you could fit like almost 20 people on it, but they say, maximum 12 just for security reasons. And it overlooks like this kind of like valley of just green, lush South American forest, just beautiful, beautiful area. So everybody kind of tries to go to Minca, and that place was Casa Elemento or something like that. So it was a really like cool. It was a hostel. People could stay there, but it was really expensive relative to other ones, but also further away. So we just went up to Minca as a group. We were like 4 German girls and like 2 Canadian guys, and we said, okay, we'll try and find a place, hopefully like a private room for all of us, and it would be really nice. And we ended up finding one, and Minca was just such a beautiful place. It's just in the mountains, and in the distance you see this Sierra Nevada, which means snow-capped mountains, snow-capped peaks. Which is also happens to be the same name in Spain and the States, I think. But that Sierra Nevada is like one of the only mountains in Colombia that is snow-capped like year-round. So it was really cool to be, sweating and just being there in Minca in like this humid forest, looking up and seeing this like peaks, like a few peaks just like really sticking out there. It's just very picturesque and such a world of difference from, being at the coast like half an hour prior. So it was a really nice like shift, and starting to realize like, okay, like we are in the mountains, and we're probably, going to go hiking. It's not going to just be like beach bums on the beach, like putting sunglasses on pineapples and taking cool pictures with them. So we ended up finding our hostel and private room and everything, and we had like family dinner, and like woke up in the morning, and we heard about this French bistro or French bakery. It was amazing. Like, those expats who just decide that they're going to open like a small shop. You know who I am because you're thinking about it right there. And I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to do the exact same thing and open a small shop somewhere in a really cool small town. And I really look up to those type of people. So when I see it, I have to go. Even though it's always going to be a little bit more expensive than that Colombian baker next door, it's France in Colombia. So we got these like amazing like croissants and crepes, and all the bread that was there was so good. And they had all these different dips that you could try. Oh, it was delicious. It was spectacular. Everybody was having a blast. Germans, Canadians alike. We were all going crazy on it. And that was like our, stock up before we go up to the Casa Elemental, the hike, which I think if you take like if you pay like the scooter guys, motorbike guys, they'll get you there in like 20 minutes drive, and it's all uphill, dirt road kind of, not developed kind of area, of course. Or you can walk, and it takes a few hours. And we all decided like, whatever, we'll walk. We didn't realize how hot it was or how painful it would have been, but it was worth it by the end. And it was cool. That walk, it's really like a good way to start to get to know people a little bit more. You get a lot nicer conversations when you're actually sweating and exerting energy for something. So while walking up, I ended up spotting all these like wild raspberries and strawberries. So we were also getting little snacks thanks to, whatever my hiking experience out in the wild. So it was really nice. And once we got to Casa Elemental, it was just this like massive downer that was coming over like all of us. Like, we were okay with not seeing the site that everyone told us was amazing, but to get there and just be like all clouds, like to the point where you could barely even see the hammocks that we were like all hyped about all day, or even for a few days, because we were talking about it back in Santa Marta like 5 days prior or something. And it was just a bit of a bummer, but I still jumped in the pool and I bought a beer and we just kind of like hung out for a little bit. And lo and behold, patience always paves the way for beautiful experiences. And the clouds started to clear up at some point while we were on the hammock. And it was just a spectacular experience. We were doing this whole like photo op thing. I was just taking pictures of them, and it was all of them on this hammock and just clouds in the background. And at some point I was like, yo guys, like the clouds are clearing up. So I like kind of yelled at somebody else for their attention. Like, hey, can you take a picture of me in this too? Like, I want to be in this picture. I want to remember this moment that like the clouds actually like cleared out for us almost, because we were the only ones there. And, yeah, it was just a really cool experience to go from, clouded kind of downer to like everybody's like celebrating, and then maybe, a few more beers are bought and everybody's just having a much better time, obviously, once you get what you went for. But the whole walk there, we realized that like we kind of wanted to continue traveling together, but we couldn't. And they were planning to go to this place. The Germans were planning to go to this, the Germans, they were planning to go to this place called Cabo de la Vela, which is like the northernmost point of South America. And what's crazy about it is that it's where the desert meets the ocean. And it's like one of those few places in the world where you could just have like a massive sand dune and like blue, crystal clear, Caribbean waters. So I really wanted to go there, and I think we ended up encouraging like one other person to go with them who wasn't planning to have that in her trip. And it was like really cool to just see that dynamic grow over time, where it's just like, these people, like, we're just traveling together because we happen to be going in the same place, to be like growing this like friendship and saying like, you know what, I'm changing my entire trip. I'm going to stay with you guys. Needless to say, I didn't go with them. I already kind of had my plans and to go down to where I was talking about last time in Barbosa, Santander, where I was volunteering for a bit. So I could have gone with them. I probably could have delayed it a few days and still made it down to where I needed to be. But no regrets. It was just really cool to have the stories of these like friendships and just like, just taking a bus or like taking an 8-person colectivo taxi instead of a bus can just like change your experience somewhere so much. So I hope you guys are just like enjoying the randomness of some of these stories, because you just never know how it's going to grow. And I know that if you've traveled a lot, you have tons of stories like this, not to take away from that, but I loved Colombia. That was just like such a great starting, week or 2 weeks to my experience to like a country that I was then going to like, fall in love with. And I still am in love with it. I mean, damn, I'm still wearing a Colombia shirt right now. I got a tattoo in Barbosa. So what I'm trying to say is, be open to meeting people when you're on the road. Be open to change your plans. I say this all the time, but most importantly, be open to listening to my podcast, and open all of them now. I appreciate you guys. I think I'm going to stick to some Latin American countries for the next couple weeks, because I've given Europe enough time. So let me know if there's any, countries, as I've said and asked before, that you really want to hear about. And I've probably been there and I got tons of stories. So let me know. Thank you. I appreciate you. Stay safe.